Ever notice how some images just totally grab you? Like, even if it's an ad, you can't look away. Today we're doing a deep dive into advertising photography.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's a whole art and science, really.
Exactly. We've got a ton of info to sort through today to try to figure out how these visuals work, why they're so effective, and what makes them tick.
Yeah, we're really going to unpack how they persuade us and why it even matters in the first place.
So to kick things off, maybe we can just start with like, what exactly is advertising photography?
It's kind of this unique blend. Like you're taking photography, which is artistic, and then you're applying it very deliberately to the world of advertising.
Right.
The whole point is to grab your attention, obviously. They want you to notice their product or service. And it takes real skill, not just knowing how to use your camera, the lighting and all that, but also understanding like how the language of photography actually speaks to people, potential
So
customers.
it's more than just like taking a nice picture and slapping it on a billboard.
Way more. Think of it as commercial photography, if you will. It's like a core part of a brand's entire strategy.
Huh.
These aren't just random pretty pictures. There's so much planning behind them. They want to build a whole identity for the brand, communicate their values, and yeah, ultimately get you interested. They want to show off the best parts of whatever they're selling. And the photographers, they have to really get the world that the product exists in, the context.
It's like a mix of creative vision and business smarts all at once.
Exactly. At the heart of it, it's all about promotion, marketing. You have to like marry the creative process with specific business goals.
Makes sense.
And the thing is, it's always changing. As consumers change, as culture shifts, the way that products are presented visually, that has to change too.
It's dynamic, it's evolving.
Totally.
Okay, so these photos, they have a job to do, obviously. But what are those jobs exactly? Beyond just, looking nice.
Sure. Well, on a basic level, they got to tell you what the product is and what it does.
Right.
Visually, obviously. But more importantly, it's persuasion. That is key.
Persuasion, okay.
They're putting an idea out there, a product, a
Mhm.
service, and they want to convince you of its value to motivate you to actually go and buy it. And that influence, it's not some accident, it's baked right into the image itself.
So they're actively trying to win us over through what we see, basically.
100%. They pique your interest first, get you hooked, and then they start working on convincing you that it's something you actually need or want.
I see.
And then beyond just individual products, right, these images, they're super important for building a whole brand from the ground up. It's that visual identity, communicating their message, embodying the company's values. It's got to be unique, something that stands out from those like generic stock images.
Totally. Like you see a certain visual style and you instantly know which brand it is.
Right. Exactly. And there are other goals too, of course. They want you to remember the ad,
Uh-huh.
create a positive association with the brand, maybe trigger some kind of emotional response through the colors they use, the overall visuals. And honestly, it's just got to be original, something that stands out from the crowd.
So how do they actually do that, the whole persuasion thing? What's the secret sauce?
That's where what we call visual rhetoric comes in.
Visual rhetoric.
Yeah. It's how we're convinced by what we see, how we interpret it and make meaning. And in advertising, it's super deliberate. It's all about persuasion, using those visual elements, colors, framing, all that.
Huh.
It operates on different levels. First, they got to grab your attention, right? That's number one. Then they try to convince you to buy it, that you want it. And lastly, they want to make sure you remember the brand later on, keep it relevant in your mind.
Wow, so it's almost like they're building a visual argument.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And just like language has, figures of speech, visual communication has its own too. So, for example, visual metaphors. Those can be super powerful. Like, remember those old ads that compared cigarettes to bullets to show how dangerous they are?
Oh, right.
Instant impact. And then there's symbolism, which adds these deeper layers of meaning to the image. It works because the connection, it often happens subconsciously. You don't even realize it's happening.
Makes you think. I'm curious, how important is the actual like arrangement of the photo itself?
Huge. The framing, the composition, it's all about guiding your eye, creating a certain flow. And principles like simplicity or the rule of thirds, it's not just about making things look pretty. It's about making you focus on what they want you to focus on.
I see.
Where's the focal point? How do they use light and shadow? All these things are designed to lead your gaze where they want it to go.
Hmm.
Even visual paths like a Z shape or an F shape, those can influence how you see the image.
Wow. So even the most basic stuff, it's all intentional.
Mm-hmm.
What about like color and light? Those must be pretty important in setting the mood.
Oh, absolutely. Color psychology is huge in advertising. Different colors evoke different emotions, right?
Yeah.
And they use that strategically in the product, the background, the fonts even. And light, well, light can be used to emphasize things, create drama,
Mhm.
or just convey a very specific feeling.
It's amazing how much thought goes into all of it.
Yeah.
Aside from metaphors, are there any other techniques like specific visual things they use to persuade us?
Oh, tons. Repetition, for one. If you see the same image over and over, you're going to remember it. Body language is another one. Like the models in the photos, they might project a certain confidence or success, and that can
Mm.
rub off on you. And even just a direct gaze, eye contact, it creates this feeling of connection.
Mm.
There's also what we call association. They try to link the product to some positive feeling or memory that you have. Anthropomorphism, that's a fun one.
Anthropomorphism.
It's when they give human traits to objects. It makes them relatable somehow. And of course, there are emotional appeals, which often involve storytelling, symbolism, all sorts of things. They tap into our desires. Oh, and don't forget the fear of missing out, FOMO,
Right.
or social proof, where they use endorsements and testimonials. All of these play a part in how they visually persuade us.
Earlier, you mentioned some great examples of how metaphors work. Are there any other cool examples, like of specific ways these rhetorical figures show up?
Sure, yeah. Think of a phone ad that shows two SIM cards to really highlight the dual SIM feature.
Hi.
That's actually redundancy for emphasis. Or a humorous exaggeration, like
Yeah.
an ad where a kid drinks milk and then he suddenly has the strength to lift a truck.
Okay.
That's hyperbole, right? Then you've got stuff like an unexpected contract. Maybe it's an ad with a ballerina doll surrounded by soccer players. And the tagline is like, wrong job. It creates intrigue, makes you think. And then there's personification, like giving human-like qualities to an object. Imagine an ad for a fridge that's overflowing and it says, needs liposuction.
Okay. I get it.
And lastly, there's metonymy, where they use a related image to represent something else, like showing a picture of Einstein to signify intelligence. All these techniques are used to get your attention and make a lasting impression.
This is fascinating. So how is advertising photography different from other kinds of photography, like documentary or art photography?
That's a really important question. Documentary photography, that's all about capturing reality. It often focuses on social issues and tries to be as objective as possible.
Right.
It's not about persuasion, not really. Advertising photography is the opposite. It's about intentionally constructing a reality to get you to do something, to buy something. The intent is fundamentally different.
That makes sense.
Artistic photography is also different. It's driven by the photographer's personal vision, their artistic exploration. It's not about selling something, usually. Advertising photography, it's always tied to business goals. You have a client and you have to meet their needs. And how you measure success is different, too. In art photography, it's about artistic merit. In advertising, it's about, did the ad work? Did it sell the product?
That clears it up. What about portrait photography?
Well, portrait photography is about capturing the essence of a person. Advertising photography sometimes uses portraits, sure, but the focus is always on the product or service being sold. The people in the photos, they're there to showcase the thing, not themselves.
I get it. So how has advertising photography changed over time?
Oh, it's had a fascinating journey. In Brazil, for example, early advertising was all about word of mouth. For centuries. It wasn't until the early 1800s that the first printed ads appeared, and those were super descriptive, very straightforward. By the early 1900s, they started using illustrations. That was the big thing. Photography came around in 1880 or so, but it took a while to catch on. The technology wasn't quite there, and people preferred drawings for a long time.
Huh.
It wasn't until the 1930s that photography really started to take over. And early on, they mainly used it for endorsements, like famous people promoting products or just to show off like what a business looked like from the outside.
Basic stuff.
Pretty much. In 1925, there was this agency, J. Walter Thompson. They were pioneers, actually. They were some of the first to really push for using photographs instead of illustrations. But even then, early ads were pretty basic.
How so?
Well, they were descriptive, not very conceptual, and sometimes they even used images from the US. They were like importing those visual standards.
Interesting. So a slow evolution from words to drawings to photos.
Exactly.
And what about more recent history? How have things changed in the digital age?
Oh, that's where things get really interesting. Digital cameras, that was a huge turning point.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everyone had access to high-quality equipment. And then came smartphones, which made everything even more accessible and portable. Drones came along, offered these crazy new perspectives,
Right.
and AI editing software that streamlined post-production like crazy. Digital technology basically made everything faster, more efficient, both for editorial photography and advertising.
I can imagine.
And then social media came along and just completely transformed things.
In what way?
It turned cameras into these powerful communication tools. Everyone's a photographer now, and that's been a huge advantage for advertisers.
It's like the whole world became visual.
Exactly. All these technological advancements have completely reshaped how we produce and consume advertising photography.
Technology really has been driving a lot of the changes.
No doubt about it. But it's not just technology. Advertising photography is super intertwined with social and historical contexts, too.
Oh.
Like in Brazil, the field really became professionalized in the 1950s. That was a big deal. And even something like selfie culture, it's had a huge impact on advertising aesthetics.
Really?
Yeah. These images, they reflect our tastes and trends, but they also shape them. It's a two-way street. And they're always adapting to social norms, consumer expectations, all of that.
So it's a constantly evolving landscape. Earlier, we talked about some specific case studies of ad campaigns. What were some of the key takeaways from those examples?
One thing that stood out was how effective it can be to humanize a brand. We looked at that campaign, Gato de Bigode for Death Clean, and it was really powerful.
Okay.
And then their work for Dr. Oetker. That showed how you can use visuals to highlight specific product benefits. Then we analyzed those campaigns for Burger King, Salvatore, Dove, Toyota.
Right.
They showed how different brands use different techniques with varying results. We also looked at Avon and how their campaigns evolved between 2012 and 2021. They really adapted to changing social norms. It was pretty cool to see.
So the takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach, really.
Exactly. The key is to find that sweet spot where the concept, the function of the ad, and the visual rhetoric all come together authentically. When you get that right, that's when advertising photography is at its most effective.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, what are the biggest takeaways about advertising photography?
Well, it's dynamic, it's constantly changing, but the purpose is always the same: to promote, to persuade. It's using all these different visual strategies to get you to do something, to buy something, to think something. It's got this fascinating history, evolving from basic illustrations to really sophisticated photography. And it's been massively influenced by technology, obviously, and by societal shifts. It's a powerful tool, that's for sure. And it's constantly adapting to our changing needs and desires.
It's a lot more complex than I ever realized.
Right.
What about the future? What can we expect to see in the coming years?
Well, I think we're going to see AI playing an even bigger role, for sure. More immersive experiences, interactive ads, that kind of thing. And authenticity is going to be more important than ever. Consumers are savvy. They can spot a fake a mile away. Brands are going to have to be real to connect on a deeper level.
It makes you think about all the visual messages we're bombarded with every single day.
Right.
And how they might be shaping our thoughts and decisions, even when we don't realize it.
Well, this was a fantastic deep dive. I learned a ton. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure.
I'll see you next time for another deep dive.